The root to darkness. Break covenants and curses. Break generational covenants and curses. And y'all know I have to have a solution, so prayers and acts to stay protected. Now previously I made a few videos, one on monitoring spirits, another one on familiar spirits, another one on energy and spiritual vampires. I made 3 review videos on that topic, 2 on this girl who went viral, her life story, and then 1 on the movie Sinners, jealousy, envious, haters. And then the long introduction to this, The Root to Darkness Part 1, based on the beginning, Reshith, Genesis. Welcome to my channel, where here and there I share lessons I learned on my journey. For the past year, the Most High has really been showing me the faces of people's spirits and what sources are the forces of negativity and darkness. Let's get into the nitty gritty. Alright, so now I'm going to talk about Shedim, Shud in the singular,
Satyr,
Satyr in the singular. There's other words in Greek, in Aramaic, and Rome. I'll get into later. Hello, Lucifer. Hasatan, Satan, which Christianity gets Satan from. Shedim, Shud, is seen in scripture a few times. Deuteronomy 32:17, where it says they sacrifice unto devils, not to the Most High, but to the gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. They weren't even worthy of fearing. So Shud, H7700.
Songs H7700. Shade.
Is from H7736.
H7736. Shud.
Meaning waste, devastation. I told y'all some of these words, the root of these words is gonna root back to what was on earth before creation. Destroy, waste, to ruin, spoil, devastate. This is what a demon does. Psalms 91, not to fear. Verse 5, thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that fly by day. Verse 6, nor for the pestilence that walk in the darkness, nor for the destruction that waste at noonday. Psalms 106, verse 37, yea, they sacrifice their sons and their daughters unto devils. Shireen. Psalms H8163 in the plural. In the singular is Seir, H8175. That's where it comes from.
Strong's H8175. Satyr. Second entry. Satyr.
And that means to fear, to storm, cause a whirlwind. A Satyr.
Strong's H8163. Satyr.
There is a he-goat, a hairy goat. Now, imagine a whole bunch of the gods, even the one that the Satanists follow today, Baphomet, whatever the name is. It looks like a hairy goat. A lot of the animals in ancient times, although it was more than this, but was half man, half goat. You had that. So I'm gonna get into that one. In the Greek is a Satyr, which is a devil, a hairy goat. In Rome, it will be a fawn. In Aramaic, it will be jinn. I believe, don't quote me, but I believe that will be the equivalent to this in Hebrew. So let's go to Genesis 1:24. The Most High created living creatures. 53:15 was different than when he listed as cattle. And of course, everything wasn't listed. So when we read in the translation cattle, we may be thinking cow, but no, we already went into the breakdown of what is translated to us as cattle, is a creature, an animal, the mute, kind. Not saying they're dumb or they don't make noises, like cows moo, horses hee-haw, ducks quack, dogs bark, and they can be smart too, but they don't have the same level of intelligence. They were the livestock. So H929, the beast, the animal, the cattle. So the Most High created living creatures, livestock, creeping things, and beasts. H2416, alive, living, life, wild beasts. Leviticus 17:7, they shall no more offer sacrifices unto devils, Sawyer, after whom they have gone a whoring. Seir is a he-goat, a sacrificial animal, a hairy goat, a demon, and it does not indicate figuratively. So take it for what it is. Isaiah 13:21, in reference to Babylon not being inhabited. But the wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, owls that shall dwell there. The Seirs shall dance there. Wild beasts, verse 22, wild beasts of the island shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their peasant places. And her time is near to come, in days not long. So the prophecy was that ancient Babylon was going to be desolate, and the lie detector test determines that was not a lie. However, today they are trying their very best to rebuild it. So please go back and watch part 1, because here we go again with desolate. Why are their houses desolate in these dark places? We're going to get into it a little bit more. But why are their houses this desolate, dark, place? And these, what is doleful creatures? So Isaiah 34:1, come near, ye nations, hear and hearken, let earth hear, and all that is therein, the world, and all things that come forth it. 2 through 8 talks about the Most High wrath. 9 through 11 talks about the Most High land's wrath, so the wrath he's going to have on the land. Owls and pelicans and bittern, I think that's some other type of bird. Raven will dwell in it, and he shall stretch out upon it the line of confusion and stones of empty. Verse 13, thorns and nettles, and it shall be an habitation for dragons. Like what? Now, I'm not finished with this verse, but I do want to point out, again, these are creatures that I'm sure the dragons probably are pretty much all destroyed. They probably got destroyed in the flood, but these creatures actually lived before. Like, where do we honestly think, all of these ancient civilizations get this depiction of dragons from? Like, they literally just made it up out the clear blue sky. Like, you gotta see something at least once for the first person to start the rumor. Like, where did they get this idea of that from? And is so strong in the civilization that it became a myth. It became a god. So, and it should be thorns and needles. This sounds like a empty place that's been void, probably. And it shall be the inhabitations for dragons in a court for owls. Now, when you click on owls, because I'm like, why owls? Like, owls is pretty. Owls be in the regular world. Click on owls. H1323 from H1129 and H1121. It mentions daughter plus H3284. Also refers to Job 30:29. I am a brother to dragons and companion to owls. Again, 13:23, daughter. Isaiah 43:20. The beasts of the field shall honor the Most High, the dragons and the owls. So, although they're beasts, this and other, they still, at the end of the day, the Most High created all. So, they still gotta honor the Most High. Jeremiah 50:39. The wild beasts of the desert and the wild beasts of the island shall dwell therein, no more inhabited. 1:8. So I'm giving descriptions of what these wild beasts are. It was wailing like the dragons and mourning like the owls. So, I mean, I feel like this was actually a being and not just a spirit. And I believe that the spirit that was, the forces that was on earth prior, because the living places of the masters of earth, the masters of the sea, that the Most High made, maybe jumping ahead, but the places that the Most High made for these entities to dwell were darker places than the, liveliness that we have, the earth, the leaves, the trees, the life. I believe that essence of darkness and void and waste and destruction was able to harbor these wild animals because they were in that inhabitation. But I'm jumping ahead. Anyways, continuing, Isaiah 34:14. The wild beasts of the desert shall also meet the wild beasts of the island. So there was a reason why I stopped. I knew I was getting lost for a second. So I started at 1, just to not skip too much. To sum up, from 1 to 13, then 13 I kind of elaborated, and then I jumped to Isaiah 43:20 to show an example of other precepts in scripture where they says that these wild beasts, what are the inhabitations of these wild beasts, the places these wild beasts are, more descriptions of them. So yeah, back to Isaiah 34:14. The wild beasts of the desert.
Strong's H 6728. CE.
She'll also meet with the wild beasts of the island. So they have wild beasts in different places. And the sawyer shall cry to his fellow, and the screech owl also shall rest there. And when you click on screech owl,
Strong's H 3917. Lilyth. Lilyth.
from.
Strong's H 3915. Layil. Layil.
So Lael is night. How you say good night? Lael Tov.
Midnight, Mr. Midnight. Hey, Mr. Midnight. Hey, Mr. Midnight. Mr. Midnight. Hey, Mr. Midnight.
It also says adversary here, and I can see how, because maybe that succubus spirit is how it gets almost everybody. H3917, the night spectra, ghost, phantom, apparition, Lilyth. And I explained in part 1 where phantom is a meaning of Selim, the Most High image, and find for herself a place to rest. So that's the place for them to rest, like leave them alone. Anyways, verse 15, there the great owl, H7091, which is different than Lilith owl.
Strong's H 7091. Kippos. Kippos.
So from unused root meaning contract. Mind you, when people make a deal, start a covenant. Make her nest and lay and hatch and gather under her shadow. There should vultures gather, everyone with her mate. So we know vultures usually gather in the places where death is because they prey and eat on their animals. 2 Chronicle 11 and 15. Another place is mentioned where we were worshiping these false entities. Well, we were worshiping these entities because I guess they were actually real. And he ordained him priests for the high places and for the Satyr, the devils, and for the calves he made. Verse 16. After them, out of all the tribes, such as set their hearts to seek the Most High, to sacrifice for the Most High of thy fathers. So the Most High is to be sacrificed to, not these other entities, but of course, people are creating false gods out of the Most High creations, and we're going to get into that. So moving along to the Satyr. Wait, no, I'm on the Satyr. But so in the different ancient religions, there were different things. Gods like Pan, Dionysus, these are gods that they mimicked from this actual creature. Pan and Dionysus, let's say Dionysus, I guess this is Dionysus, has stocky hair, ugly, dwarf-like, and I think this was the original description of Dionysus, and then through the years it changed to something more appealing, like a more sexier appealing man or something. But a dwarf with tails. It lived in the woods, in the mountains. It played the pipe, it liked music, lust, drinking. Emphasis on that, because later on when I explain the importance of knowing this stuff, you'll understand why the music industry pushes these things, and these are the same gods that people in the music industry worship. Pan, Hermes, I think is another name, or different region, whatever. I was just listing different gods. I'm not even gonna get into that. Maybe I'll list, because it was just so many, like through the centuries, through the different civilizations, who was ruling at the time, whatever. These gods had different names, slightly different characteristics, but at the end of the day, rooted from the same thing. So my point here is they rooted from these creatures that the Most High created. In Rome, the fondness, also a carefree, like music, identifies with Pan in Greek. It's the forest god or goddess, like a human goat, love music, loves the flute, inspire fear in men to and then I think live in wild places. So again, as we've seen all of the scriptures that I pointed out, the Most High put these creatures in wild places. My like conclusion is perhaps, you know, back in the ancient days, or the, you know, more ancient days, they had more wildlife, they had more wilderness, they had, you know, so when man went in those places, it could be possible. Like if, let's say, a group of men freaking at war, and they're not in the regular habitation of civilization, they're somewhere in the wilderness. I wouldn't be surprised if they see some stuff that's like, even today, our military are known, and I'm going to point that out later, our military are known to be keeping secrets from us. They know some stuff. These wild creatures, the Marines, the, you know, military been, there's many rumors that the military be hiding UFOs from us. Like, so it's not like it's not out there, and I'm going to give very much so credible sources for, y'all don't think I'm crazy. But if you're here and you're still here at this point, you probably don't think I'm crazy. We're on the same page. But the Mesopotamian myth, the jinn, they worshipped them as gods. Some believe they were here on earth originally. So interesting, yeah. So remember, I say I wouldn't be like, it wouldn't surprise me. I have no proof of this, so I'm not saying this is sound, but I would not be surprised if something was in creation before, and the Most High destroyed it because it was too wicked. So in that tradition beliefs, they believe that some, like, humans weren't the first people, it was the jinn, and they were destroyed. Move on now to
H 1966. Haleo.
I wanted to point out these definitions first, and then I am going to more so get into comparisons, like sum up comparison after. H 1966 from H 1984, in the sense of brightness, the morning star. Isaiah 14, and that, like a lot of things in scripture that was misinterpreted, that is in reference to the king or kings of Babylon, who were very pagan. How art thou fallen from heaven, O hello, morning star, translated to Lucifer and became Satan, the same entity as Satan. Incorrect. Isaiah 14:12. Hello, son of the morning, dawn. So like that dark light, that crack of day. How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? So Babylon does have a history of weakening other nations. Definition of weaken used here though, H 25:22, prostrate, decay, waste away. Here's the word waste, the use of waste again. 13 through 14 speaks how they wish to be the Most High, they wish to be powerful. It was in the Tower of Babel, something they wanted, you know, the throne. But verse 15.
H 7585. Sheol. And H 7585. Sheol. And second entry, Sheol. Strong's H 7592. Sha'al. And second entry, Sha'al.
Meaning to ask, inquire, borrow. Y'all know how the old people be like, you ask for it. You ask for a whipping. You ask to go. You ask to go to Sheol. But really though, take counsel or consult anything other than the Most High, and you know where you're heading. Sheol, the underworld, the pits, the place of no return. without the praise of the Most High. What I just say, you consult anyone other than the Most High without the praise of the Most High. That's where you're going. People better wake up using a third party to get to the Most High when the Most High say he will never give his glory to somebody else. The size of the pits is his place. So basically saying that's where he belongs. That's his place. That's his inhabitation. Verse 16, the man that made the earth tremble. Tremble 72:64, quiver with violent emotion, anger, or fear is definition of tremble. Tremble. And then afraid and trouble. So that's what the king of Babylon brings on. That did shake kingdoms. So he was a terror. So I'm going a little left right quick. But Daniel 8:3 and 4 talks about a ram. This is a metaphor. Not an actual being, I believe. But a metaphor, Daniel. So from 3 to 4 they talked about this ram. And then verse 5, a he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground. It had notable horns between the eyes. It ran, verse 6, it ran into the ram fury of his power. So it was upset at the ram's power. Broke its horns and waxed the earth great, so strong his first horn broke. In verse 9, out of one of the horns came a little horn that waxed great towards the south and the east and towards the pleasant land. Verse 10, and waxed great even to the heavens and cast down some of the hosts of the stars to the ground and stamped, oppressed, like stump, upon them. Verse 11, he magnified even the prince of hope. So before I move forward, because now I'm about to talk about Satan. I pointed out Daniel in the midst of speaking of, because this is describing a metaphor for the description of these wicked kings of these other nations and what they done. So these kings was all into these other creations. Like I say, I don't know if they possibly seen it, was amused, was like, oh my goodness, it's a god, you know. And then this is how these false gods started coming about. And not just the kings, like whoever was higher up, they probably made, you know, started making their structures, their images of it. Like the Most High say, do not make graven images to worship it. Because, I mean, they had a different mindset than we have now. Like back then, they seen some weird, scary stuff. They, you know, maybe some, but I think spiritually they was on a whole different level to where they were more amused and thought it was a god, versus we gonna be scared and run like, what the hell is that? There's a monster eye, right? So they probably took these creatures and was like, oh, it must be a god, and then, you know, sacrifice in that space thinking it'll come back to them. Who knows? It probably did. If you're feeding it wine and food, you know, when you're into these different religions, you're doing offerings, you're feeding it something. So of course the entity would come back eventually. Maybe it didn't come while they was like physically there. Maybe they waited in the night. They woke up in the morning and seen their altar place was, you know, whatever was gone. Like, okay, and they Horion and partying now that the entity actually took their sacrifice. You know, I'm just going off of, based on what I've researched, and also based on what I know from paganism and how rituals and stuff like that work, I would just imagine that's what probably was like the core of how these false gods came about.
Terrifying and fascinating creatures that populated the myths and legends of one of the oldest civilizations in the world, of Mesopotamian mythology. Let's start with the fact that in the mythology of ancient Mesopotamia, even the origin of the world is associated with primeval, monster serpents that were seen as the fantastical embodiment of chaos and evil. Sometimes demons were identified with natural phenomena and natural disasters. Such demons used thunder and lightning as weapons. The Anzu bird appears prominently in Mesopotamian mythology. It was an enormous bird-like monster with the head of a lion. The flapping of its wings was thought to be the cause of sandstorms and whirlwinds. Sulak was the demon of the privy. He hid in toilets and was also held responsible for causing strokes and seizures. But the most monstrous demon was Asig, the hideous monster of the mountains. He was hideous and had the power to make fish boil alive in the rivers. As a demon of plague, Asig attacked humans and killed them with head and fever diseases. The most terrible of all female demons was Lamashtu. She primarily attacked pregnant women and infants, whom she sought to devour. Lamashtu was often portrayed as a mythological hybrid with a bird's or a lion's head. She is mostly in the company of dogs and pigs. Humans believed that water demons or water spirits dwelled in the rivers, streams and canals of Mesopotamia. Lamu and Lahamu were originally river spirits. Their flowing hair with 3 pairs of curls symbolized water. Some water demons stirred up the water and polluted it so that it won't be useful to man. The ancient Mesopotamians also believed that the underworld was home to many demons. For example, Gertablulu was immensely violent and dangerous. He was able to induce death with his gaze and terror with his presence. Ghosts, spirits of the dead, especially of those who died by violence or were not properly buried, were considered creatures of fear and terror. Some just wandered aimlessly over the earth, unable to find rest. Others were evil vampire spirits who hid in dark corners, waiting to attack humans. Some demons could be either bad or good. One group of entities was used to ward against various malign demons, malevolent intruders, to protect temples and cemeteries. Another group of entities were powerful guardian spirits of the state and the king. The Mesopotamians also erected statues of large monumental bulls Lamassu at the gates of palaces or cities. Demons could easily go through doors, windows, and walls, so protection was paramount. The Mesopotamians used magic, rituals, amulets, prayers, and offerings to the gods.
It also was the basis for many of their laws. Long after the Sumerian language ceased to be spoken in day-to-day life, Sumerian religion thrived among the newer peoples who entered Mesopotamia. The Akkadians, Amorites, Assyrians, Kassites. Whoever permanently settled in this land, for the most part, adopted the deities and basic tenets of Sumerian religion without too many fundamental differences. For these and many other reasons, understanding Sumerian religion is so important for comprehending the great civilization that flourished in the land that we today call Mesopotamia. A variety of texts that include epic tales, myths, rituals, hymns, prayers, seals, and inscriptions left behind by various kings and other rulers. The earliest of these come from the period we call the early dynastic period of Sumer, which are the years roughly between 2900 to 2350 BCE. Of course, Sumerian religion goes back much further, but those are the years from which we start to see a lot of written and other archaeological evidence that allow us to get a more comprehensive picture of their religious beliefs and practices. For the most part, the Sumerians were polytheistic, meaning that they believed in many deities in the forms of gods, goddesses, and various spirits. These deities were responsible for various aspects of creation, whether it be the rising and setting of the sun, waxing and waning of the moon, rain and weather, love and war, or really any natural phenomenon or emotion. For all of these things that I just mentioned, there was some god, goddess, or spirit associated with it. To help explain how these divine beings and the universe operated, the Sumerians had many myths where the gods and goddesses were superstars in some sort of cosmic play. They lived in a spiritual world that was in many ways a replica of the human society of Sumer. Like those of ancient Greece, these gods and goddesses had their own unique personalities and were very similar to human beings in their appearance and temperament. The difference, of course, was that they had supernatural powers and were immortal. Well, most of them were. Occasionally, you did have a few gods or goddesses fight and kill each other, with the loser turning into some sort of natural phenomenon, like a constellation or a river. At the lowest rung of the ladder were various spirits, which could be either helpful like angels or harmful like demons. Above these were deities that were in charge of nature or various trades, such as gods of the wind, or those who protected blacksmiths. There were also gods and goddesses associated with animals and their protection. After this were the gods and goddesses of the netherworld, such as Nergal or Ereshkigal. Then there were gods associated with war, such as Ninurta, followed by gods and goddesses of astrophenomenon, such as the sun, moon, and stars. These deities, such as Nana and Shamash, were considered to be very powerful since they controlled natural phenomenon whose operation at the time was incomprehensible to humans. At the top of the Sumerian hierarchy were the three great gods of An, Enlil, and Enki.
And inside these temples, sacred prostitutes served as intermediaries between humans and the divine. These male sacred prostitutes, known as hierodules, held a respected and honored position in society, and their role was considered a form of religious devotion rather than the modern concept of prostitution. Becoming a hierodule was no simple task. Boys who were chosen for this revered role underwent rigorous training and preparation from a young age. They were often selected from families dedicated to temple service. The training encompassed various aspects, including learning sacred rituals, dance, music, and etiquette. These skills were crucial for their eventual role as intermediaries between the gods and the people. Upon reaching adolescence, the chosen boys would go through a symbolic initiation ceremony, marking their transition into adulthood and their official induction as hierodules. Now let's explore a day in the life of a male sacred prostitute in ancient Sumer. The day would begin with rising early in the morning and cleansing oneself in preparation for the day's sacred duties. After the morning rituals, the hierodule would head to the temple, where they would spend their day in service to the deity they represented. Inside the temple, the sacred prostitute would engage in various activities. They would perform dances and music, believed to invoke the gods' favor and blessings upon the people. Additionally, hierodules would participate in religious ceremonies, where they acted as intermediaries between the worshippers and the divine. It's essential to understand that the role of hierodules went beyond just physical acts. They were revered for their spiritual connection and ability to convey the divine will to the people. Within Sumerian society, the hierodules were an integral part of the temple's functioning, and their presence was widely accepted and valued. And that concludes our journey into the day in the life of a male sacred prostitute in ancient Sumer.
Sacred prostitution. In this context, ritual sexual practices were considered a means of communicating with divine powers, which enhanced the city's status as a hub of worship and spirituality. In Uruk, the first lines of the story of body and spirit were written.
Not desire, but duty. And once it was done, she was declared purified, forever marked by the divine touch of a stranger's hand. Here, sex was not sin. It was a form of taxation to the gods, an offering that blurred spirituality with submission. And this was only the beginning. Beneath those same temples lay darker practices. Eunuch priests who bled themselves in ecstasy, child brides bound to idols, kings who married their daughters to preserve the blood of heaven. This was Mesopotamia, a world where holiness demanded humiliation, where the divine was carved from desire, and where civilization's first empire built its glory upon the most bizarre sexual customs the world had ever known. Before we descend deeper into the shadows of Babylon's forbidden rituals, the priests said that to serve Ishtar was to serve life itself, for she was the womb of creation, the morning star that rose from chaos. But in their fervor they forgot that the same goddess who blessed fertility also demanded submission, that her worship was not gentle prayer but surrender, in its rawest, most intimate sense. Within her sanctuaries, flesh was sanctified, not by love but by ritual. The line between worship and exploitation dissolved, until no one could tell where holiness ended and hunger began. When the kings of the early dynasties looked upon their people, they saw not citizens but offerings, living instruments through which divine balance was maintained. Every woman's body was a temple, every temple a marketplace, and every act of intimacy a coin tossed toward the heavens. The city glittered like paradise, but beneath its light, shadows began to stir, shadows that would soon consume Babylon's soul. As the centuries passed, and the kingdoms of Sumer and Akkad gave way to the grandeur of Babylon, the rituals that had once been whispered in sacred secrecy became instruments of control written into law. The great ziggurats that crowned the city were no longer merely temples, but theaters of obedience, and within their towering walls the human body was reshaped into a symbol of divine submission. It was said that no woman could truly call herself pure until she had sat within the shadow of Ishtar's sanctuary and awaited the call of destiny. Yet destiny arrived not as revelation, but as humiliation.
Blood sacrifice thing. I don't know if you got into all that, but can you kind of go there, being as though you were in the belly of the beast in the music industry?
To be a member of the Illuminati or a member of the elite society or whatever, I've had motherfuckers come at me on some weirdos, like on some gay, oh, you should do this. I view that as being inhuman. I view that as, I would never do that.
at some point, you're going to get invited into a house. And the house is going to be broken down into certain rooms. And these rooms are designated by activities. So if you don't do the activities, you don't get in the room. And so there's some of these houses and parties I've been invited to, you get there and you realize, this ain't for me.
Yeah.
I wanted to see, could I get invited and get in that hole? And then you get in it and realize, man, I don't do this. I don't fuck around like this. You open the wrong room, though. You be like, oh, damn, bro, that's how you move? You think you want to be in these rooms with these people, and you get in the room and you realize it's not where you want to be or where you need to be.
To be gay in Hollywood, you never expected. They be having these big mansion parties, and the mansion party, the whole mansion is a party, and then it's a separate party in the little rooms. You be looking at all the rooms, and you and look in the wrong room. Nick, come here. Is that kissing?
Especially being in Hollywood and being in the industry, you see a lot of that. In Hollywood, if you're in the industry, the devil, like Illuminati, they try to get you. Especially when you got a big influence you around, you just gotta be smart and have discernment and have God's favor over you. Cause if you don't got that and you in Cali, you gonna get sucked in and invite you to these parties, these house parties. And then they be like, oh, Whoop gonna be there, like your favorite rapper. When you get in, you gotta give us your phones. Might do some to somebody and record it and tell them, oh, if you expose us, we gonna post it everywhere. So I was with some friends in LA and it was this big influencer party. Should I say a name? It was belly throwing party. The party said you have to be half naked. I'm like, first of all, I ain't going half naked nowhere. Oh yeah, you can't bring your phone in. I'm like, first of all, who ain't bringing their phone in? I sign some papers. What am I signing? Get into a party? Like what? This is where it really threw me off. They said they had to prick your blood to get in. I said, oh no, I'm good. Everyone else went, I called my Uber and left. It's like you think about it, people move to LA for a dream. They chasing money, fame, clout, whatever. A young girl that's trying to get on, they just moved out there. She gon', oh hell yeah, better throw it in there. You don't know who else in it, like connections. Me, I'm good.
But people like Diana Dors, you would even have other celebrity women that were gorgeous at the time. They would use their faces to attract these people to come to these parties, right? And then now we know about Diddy and his parties. Everybody know about Diddy and his parties, but Diddy's not the only one who has his parties. There's lots of these celebrities that have these same type of parties, these billionaires. A lot of them have the parties for those specific purposes. S-magic is any type of intimate activity used in magical, ritualistic, or otherwise religious and spiritual pursuits. One practice of S-magic is using sensual arousal or climaxing with visualization of a desired result. It's kind of like manifesting, but using that when you're climaxing. A premise posited by S-magicians is the concept that sensual energy is a potent force that can be harnessed to transcend one's normally perceived reality. They believe that when you're climaxing, this is when you're the closest to the spiritual world. You let go of your inhibitions. This is why some people, when they climax, they can't help but even if they're atheists, they call out the Lord's name, etc., blah, blah, blah. That's what S-magicians believe. So it's the best time for them for you to manifest what you want out of life, okay? The earliest known practical teachings of S-magic in the Western world came from 19th century American occultist Paschal Beverly Randolph. He was a son of a wealthy Virginian father and a slave mother, and he was a well-known spiritualist. Randolph developed one of the most influential systems of S-magic. As per him, the moment when one reaches their climax is the most intense and the most powerful experience a human can have in life. For in that moment, the soul suddenly opens to the divine realm and the breath of God is infused. He said, true S power is God power. As such, the power of climaxing can be used by a man and woman for various gains, both worldly and spiritual. Randolph also insisted that for the magic to be effective and prayers be fulfilled, both the partners involved in should achieve climaxing at the same time, like in the same moment. His teachings were later passed on to numerous secret societies in Europe, the most notable being Ordo Templi Orientis, or OTO. We're going to call him OTO for short. And it was founded by Karl Kellner and Theodore Rouse, and all of these are occultists, okay? Aleister Crowley, who many of you should know by now, is like the Satanist, the most popular Satanist of all. He became involved with Theodore Rouse in Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO, following the publications of the Book of Lies between 1912 and 1913. And while the OTO included from its inception the teaching of S-magic and the highest degrees of the order, when Crowley became head of the order, he expanded on these teachings and associated them with different degrees as follows. So there's 3 different degrees that he went on to, which is touching yourself, auto-sensual magic techniques, you know, like touching yourself, how to do it solo, basically, and still reach the same type of goal that you want. And then the heterosexual magic techniques were taught between a man and a woman. And then of course the third is the anal, which is between, you know, man and man. So where does Hollywood come into that? You guys already know right now, a lot of Hollywood, these parties, that's just what they are. The deeper you go into those roots, that's just what they are. A lot of the rituals they do with live meat, they even eat people in a lot of these parties, right? They'll even eat human flesh, like take a chunk of people's, it's just really, really dark. And a lot of them love the teaching of Aleister Crowley, and these people, they really support them. They'll do the symbolisms, they'll throw it in your face, and you all just, S magic is used in occult practices, even in like voodoo culture and all of that, and other magical practices and other, Caribbean islands, etc. They do that all the time. I'm from the islands. I know what I'm talking about. Even without being super famous, they do that.
Moving on along. First Chronicle 21:1. Satan.
Strong's H7854. Satan.
From the root word
H7853. Satan.
Pretty much mean the same thing. Adversary, resist, to be or act as an adversary, resist, oppose.
Satan.
An opponent. So Satan is totally different from what the world created it to be. It's an opponent, the adversary, the arch enemy of good. Also meaning withstand. Withstand means resist. I guess that means resisting goodness, resisting, the most high ways, stiff neck. And Satan stood up against Israel and provoked Dawid to number Israel. Psalms 109:6. Set thou a wicked man over him, and let Satan stand at his right hand. Zechariah 3:1. Joshua, a high priest, stood before an angel and Satan, which is very interesting. We're going to see in Job as well. I think everybody familiar with that story, but we're going to see in Job as well that the angels again stood before the Most High along with Satan. So Satan on his right hand to resist him. Verse 2, and the Most High rebuked Satan. So Job 1-2, Satan presented himself to the Most High multiple times, asking the Most High, can he test Job? 1 Kings 5-4, 11-14, 11-23-25, 2 Samuel 19-22, 1 Samuel 29-4, Numbers 22-32. The adversary is mentioned as either someone that's your opponent, that was their opponent in battle, or celestial, meaning the spirit, the Satan, the one that is here to test our loyalty to the Most High. Satan is like, I just say, like our loyalty test to the Most High. He's here to tempt us. He's here to test our diligence to the Most High. Satan, the opponent of good, the adversary, withstands, resists. He's here to test and tempt us. So when you're going through them trials and tribulations, them temptations, this who you may address. Ask the Most High to rebuke Satan. Tell Satan you side with the Most High. You're loyal to the Most High. And nothing he may try to do or bring your way is going to change that. And tell him to leave you and your life, your loved ones, or whomever alone. Skedaddle. Good riddance. Now as far as Hillel, the morning star, like where you shining, huh? Not an entity, but literally the rulers, the kings of Babylon. Son of the dawn, envies the Most High. He wants to be powerful. He wants to be the almightiest powerful. So where Hillel, the kings of Babylon belong, is in Sheol, because he causes decay. He causes waste. He weakens nations. He causes the earth to tremble. He causes anger and fear. He troubles and shakes. So a place for someone with those types of characteristics belong in a dark place. That's why the Most High put the darker entities in darker places. Now, if we think about who is Hillel today, remember Hillel initially was referred to as the kings of Babylon, the king of Babylon, or the kings of Babylon, the wicked kings, and what they done to the earth. Think about that today. These wicked leaders, not just here in the U.S., the wicked leaders overseas, like the wicked leaders of the earth, period, leading people into idolatry, whether they're secretly or openly, which more than openly is done secretly. We don't know that celebrating these holidays that we celebrate is pagan. We don't know that watching, Disney is pagan. We don't know that watching the television is pagan for the most part. So our leaders are leading us in idolatry unknowingly. The same with the religions that they led these nations with. Remember, I pointed out that these same entities that went from ancient Sumer to Mesopotamia to Babylon to Assyria to simultaneously with Egypt, Greek, Rome. They are leading us with the entertainment and other symbolism, and then we participate unknowingly in the rituals via the holidays, concerts, the Super Bowl. They took those same gods and disguised them in the religions today, especially the sun god and the moon god. Well, how does it work if it's not real? Remember, we have the ability within our likeness and image to create our reality.
If you're still unsure about manifestation, we're joined by the neuroscientist who says it really works.
After years of research, Dr. Tara Swart says it's possible to rewire our brains to align with our goals and turn even our wildest dreams into a reality.
So manifestation is basically knowing what you really want in life, right, and then doing the things to make it come true in real life. It's actually been around forever. It's quite ancient, but it tends to have a lot of resurgences, and it's definitely really popular now.
And laws of attraction, is that the same thing as manifestation?
It's confusing.
Yeah, tell us.
So the laws of attraction, I have whittled down to 6 themes, and one of them is manifestation.
Oh, I see. So what are the other themes?
So the first one is abundance, because our brain tries to protect us and keep us safe. It doesn't want us to take risks. Right. So you've got to think, actually, it's safe for me to go out there and take a risk.
Okay.
The next one is manifestation, which is, okay, this is what I really want, and this is what I need to do to go and make it happen. The third one is magnetic desire, which is...
That sounds exciting.
Well, it's that you truly want it, and it's not that everyone else is getting married or everyone else is starting up their own business. What do you really want?
Right.
Then there's patience.
Ah.
Yeah. So when you're changing your mindset, you're changing your brain. And that means that it's building up new pathways, and that takes time, so it's easy to give up. So it's about not giving up. And the last two are harmony and universal connection, which basically mean we're all connected. There's resources out there for all of us.
You initially, Tara, were a bit of a skeptic about this, weren't you? And there'll be lots of people saying, oh, for heaven's sake, it's just all nonsense. What changed that shifted your mindset from being a skeptic to thinking, actually, there is something in this?
Well, I was a medical doctor, and I was a PhD neuroscientist, so it didn't really feel like I could hold those two beliefs.
Yeah.
But then I changed career, I got divorced at the same time, and I had to search for something.
Right.
So I was interested in psychological and spiritual evolution, Buddhism, and then I discovered what was called vision boards, but I reimagined them as action boards, because you can't just sit on the sofa and think, I want to find a new husband and start up my new business and do nothing and expect it to come true.
Yes.
The difference with the science behind it is that there are things that you can do every day that bring you closer to that goal, and then you feel empowered rather than the universe sent it to me.
Yeah, so it's not about ideas just kind of falling into your lap and making a wish list and that's what's going to happen. You've actually brought in your actual, this is your well-loved, slightly peeling at the edges, vision board. Talk us through.
So this was the one I made for 2016. So I'd been divorced for quite a few years by this point, complete workaholic.
Yeah.
I put a tiny heart on my 2015 vision board, but it was mostly all about work and travel, so nothing changed.
Right.
Then I thought, okay, I want to prove to myself that I can really put my heart on the line with manifestation. So I put that big engagement ring in the top left corner. I found this little advert that said joy comes out of the blue. Then there was a lot of housey stuff and some animal conservation stuff.
Yeah.
And in February 2016, I was on a plane from Joburg to London, and I met the man who I got engaged to later that year in the sky, out of the blue.
Right. Where were you sitting next to him? Or so, it's just on the plane?
Yeah.
That's quite a moment.
I actually remember now that I did sort of see him in the lounge, but then we did sit next to each other, but we were still quite far apart, and it was a night flight, so it's not like we got chatting.
No.
But there was an issue on the plane in the middle of the night, so then we both woke up and had to kind of speak about it.
Wow, that's actually quite romantic.
Yeah, it is.
So, but Dr. Tara, how do you go from doing this to actually getting what? Do you have to change your mindset as well, or change your actions? How does it work?
I think it's the magnetic desire, because I think before, I sort of thought, I kind of realised I was using work to run away from having my heart broken again.
Right.
And then when I thought, okay, I'm really going to try, I'm going to be open, it changed within a couple of months, or even less than a couple of months. And yeah, I was just open to the possibility. And the really strange thing is, when I met him, he was renovating a house in Hampshire, and when I showed him the board, he said, but that looks like our house. So the two lower pictures. It's
Down here.
crazy, yeah.
He's got penguins in the bath as well.
You were made for each
The
other.
bathroom and meditation room, I obviously then made, I wanted a meditation room. There was no chance I was going to have that in a flat in London.
No.
But because then he had this house with this sort of small room that wasn't really easy to use for anything, I said, oh, I'll take that as my meditation room.
So I'm just trying to understand the process, and for anybody who's out there who might be a skeptic, so you change your mindset, but then physically do you change your actions too? Do you have to start kind of aiming for something and doing activities to get you to that spot?
I think you have to start by noticing.
Right.
The first thing is noticing. When did a guy try to talk to me on the plane and I shut him down?
Right.
Next time it happens, will I be more open to that? Next time, he gives me his business card, will I actually send him an email? That kind of thing. So it's taking it step by step. It's not about suddenly doing things. It is about changing your mindset first. And then it's about looking at that board every day, believing that everything on it is coming true, and giving gratitude for that.
Yeah, daily gratitude talk about being important.
Because it moves your brain into the love-trust state with the bonding hormone oxytocin and away from the fear state that will shut you down from actually taking up opportunities.
So when you wake up in the morning then, Tara, you start with your daily gratitude, don't you, as soon as you open your eyes?
Breathing and gratitude. Before I open my eyes.
Before?
Literally before, because if I open my eyes and start to see stuff, I'll get distracted. So the first thing is my silk pillowcase, because obviously I'm in contact with that. So I'm like, I love my silk pillowcase. Thank you so much, my pillow. Before my brain can start chattering to me about what I've got to do that day and all the things it think could go wrong, I push it straight from the fear state into the love state.
I love it.
And then what about these notes that you write to yourself as well? I love the idea of these little love notes that just kind of remind yourself, actually, I need to be in this state, or I need to be more positive, or tell me about some of the notes you write.
Yeah, so bathroom mirror, and then kind of around my living space, I've just got all these positive affirmations. And it's because it's so easy when you're not really thinking to default to the negative. That's why abundance is important, because our default is negative. So everywhere I look around in my home, there are statements that say, I'm powerful, I'm courageous, I'm a superstar, I'm confident, I'm beautiful. So just really, it's all these little nudges.
Yeah.
The worst thing that can happen is none of it comes true. It's not going to harm you.
Yeah.
So why not?
So it's easier with these religions because the people are actually believing in these things within religions. A little different with entertainment industry. So first and foremost, the gateway, because they secretly utilizing these ancient gods with our modern religions, is a gateway. So whether we know it or not, it's a gateway because we are secretly worshiping these ancient gods already. So then with the added symbolism that they use within the entertainment industry, the replica of the symbolism, the visual, hearing it constantly, feeding ourselves that. The FDA, Food and Drugs, is also a part, but I'm not even going to touch on that right now. Nevertheless, our daily essentials, it's what they use to force this paganism on us unknowingly. So in part one, I kind of briefly highlighted how the music industry, how the entertainment industry utilize familiar spirits to communicate with us. Basically, the entertainers are the Muppets to the familiar spirits. They use necromancy, witchcraft, or whatever other type of idolatry. They're using paganism, Satanism, Luciferian for not only their own wealth, but to keep the masses under a spell. The worst part about it is they push this concept of Lucifer right in our faces and we don't even see it.
I sit somewhere between being a literal witch, I'm not kidding.
The role of astrology in your life has meaning, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, even tarot cards. When I went to the studio, you gave me a reading. You've been doing readings on set.
Yeah.
What do you look to astrology for? Is it understanding what you're going through? Is it an understanding of what will be?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a tool to help us hear what we need to hear sometimes and kind of look forward with hope and awareness, and also reads us for filth sometimes. Sometimes we need to hear it, and just looking to something bigger than us to kind of help us make sense of it. Does that make sense?
You are a witch?
I am, indeed. The witchiest witch. Something happened recently that I actually couldn't wrap my head around. I need to remember it.
Keep going.
There was something really witchy. Oh, Jim Carrey's birthday. Thank you, Mom. I announced Eternal Sunshine on Jim's birthday, and I didn't know it was his birthday.
As she is heavily inspired by drag. Her character design and personality were based on the drag queen Divine.
Shedim, their characteristics is waste, ruin, to destroy, to devastate. You can find the similarities of them as the same things that was here when before the Most High created earth. The darkness, the ruin, the void. And then in Deuteronomy 32:17, Psalms 106 and 7, we seen that our people decided to sacrifice to these no gods. I put Lilyth with Shedim, since she is a female demon and not a actual creature, but spirit, who was rooted from Edom, Babylon, Assyria. Only mentioned in our scripture once, Isaiah 34:14, as screech owl. When you looked into that in Hebrew, it was Lilyth. So since it was no detail more further, I actually looked into the meaning of her from these ancient religions, and it does specify that Lilyth would be, remember I told you these spirits and these entities changed with civilizations and time, well, will be equivalent to Easter and these other names I have listed here from Summer, Assyria, Akkadian, Babylon, and so forth. Maybe you or someone you know, I experienced this as a child. You ever woke up in the middle of the night, couldn't scream, couldn't move, and seen just this dark shadow above you? Well, apparently that's supposedly Lilyth trying to take your soul or either have sex from you. Today, she would be described as the succubus, incubus spirit, if she's showing up either as a female or a male. Nonetheless, also trying to make marriages with humans. Supposedly, allegedly, these are the spirits of people who died young, who did not get a chance to have children, who either died a virgin or never was able to marry, and they're still wandering the earth trying to fulfill that with people, or causing issues with mothers and babies. As mentioned in the video earlier of the gods and goddesses, where that female demon spirit either caused illnesses or death to mothers and babies, or I think just babies. Nonetheless, if you're having problems with love, marriage, children, feeling waste, devastate, this may be the entity that is trying to block your light. Also, same with Seir, the he-goat. In different ancient religions, they had different names, but still all of the same. Their characteristics: to cause a storm, to cause fear, to cause a whirlwind, meaning chaos. Again, these are some characteristics when you dig deeper and deeper and deeper into the definition. What was here in Reshit in the beginning are the same characteristics of these things. The companion, they dwell with beasts. So I was pointing out all of those scriptures to point out that the Satyr, along with with the dark places they live in these dark places with other beasts, land beasts, island beasts, with the darker birds, the vultures, the owls. Although I personally think owls are cute. And you see ravens, owls, and vultures affiliated with witches. There must be some type of connection why the translation of that in English is translated to owl. many a times when they describing like the different things that's in these desolate lands. They're also with the dragons. They're with Lilyth, which was this translated to screech owl, I think. Living in desolation. You can find that the Most High created these beasts in Genesis 1:24. We sacrifice to this. It's Leviticus 17:7, 2 Chronicles 11:5. And unfortunately, just like we done with the fallen, I truly believe we also made it with these different wild beasts. There's even scientific studies that show Homo sapiens bred with Neanderthals. Still to this day and time, they have mostly the Asian and European still have Neanderthal DNA in their blood.
Neanderthal DNA indeed does influence many traits in modern humans. Traits involved in the immune system, traits involved in our skin, but also traits, psychiatric traits and neurological traits. We found that Neanderthal variants influence your risk for a skin disease called actinic keratosis. These little scaly lesions you get on your skin as you're aging and getting lots and lots of sun exposure. And it's very possible that whatever those variants were doing back then may actually have been protective. But now, in current levels of sun exposure, in current environments, it's not good for us. Hypercoagulability. So that sounds complicated, but it just means your blood clots more quickly. And that's another example of something that could be bad in modern environments. It can lead to all sorts of things like strokes and embolisms. Some psychiatric traits. So for example, we found that if we looked at Neanderthal variants overall in an individual, we could better predict their risk for depression. And now I want to be clear, that's not that Neanderthals are just making us depressed. It's some Neanderthal DNA increases your risk, and other bits of Neanderthal DNA, other parts of your genome, decreases your risk.
I tried to look into what was the behaviors of Neanderthals. I didn't want to spend too much time on it as well. I was not seeing where they say that Neanderthals were savages. Nonetheless, as we went over and over and over from part 1 and even this part of the root of darkness, we see that in desolate, wild, wilderness, dark places dwelled different types of spirits. And so did Neanderthals. So just in case someone with the Euro-Asian bloodline is watching this and facing some of these demons, may want to keep that in mind while trying to fight that spiritual battle. I'm gonna just mention, bring up the scriptures that mention different beasts, dragons, serpents, and monsters. So Genesis 1:20, we know he created water creatures. We also know he created land beasts. Genesis 3:1, he mentions how the serpent was more subtle, more cunning than any beast.
Strong's H 5175. Nachash. Nachash. Strong's H 5172. Nachash. Nachash.
Now, the root word Nachash means to practice divination, divine, observe signs, learn by experience. I mean, come on now. Learn by experience. This is why a lot of times those tarot readers, fortune tellers, people who divinate, they often fill your energy out, but it'd be like a general reading based on things that pretty much everybody go through. Everybody have stumbling blocks in their lives, obstacles getting in their way, want love, X, Y, and Z. Not saying no people in the world actually communicate with the spirit world, but it's very rare they actually have a real prophet or on the pagan side, fortune teller. And baby, based on experience and observation, you can pretty much guess what somebody is going through. If you know how to read energy. As a freaking nurse for all these years I've been a nurse, I've gotten better and better with reading the room. You feel somebody energy out, you can feel them out. Like I can literally tell when a patient just had an argument with her mate, they in the room arguing, the energy, you can feel the thickness in the air. That's based on, I had some natural abilities before becoming a nurse, but the more experience I had as a nurse, it just comes natural to start feeling people out. I could pretty much guess when a person is really in pain and then not telling me. So then I ask the patient, are you in pain? And they tell me, yes. So you was going to sit here all this time and not tell me you was in pain? But I'm also a type of nurse who diligently observe and assess my patients. They have some nurses, they're not doing that. But diligently observing, you can tell when somebody's really into you, or they're trying to use you, or they just want sex, or your friend's really a hater. You know, these things people can naturally have for yourself. You don't got to go to somebody else who's going to con you, who's going to be cunning, subtle. You could just feel it. Like, hopefully no one watching this getting caught up with believing in, wanting to do readings, but don't waste your time, all your money, opening up doors, portals for people to be able to put spells on you. Because trust me, they want you to come back and keep spending money. Or some people just weird and going to want to put a spell on you for Lord knows what. So that was the root word, Nahash. Remember that for later. Nahash means serpent, snake, the image of a serpent, a fleeing serpent, which would be the mythological meaning. So keep in mind that the root meaning of this type of serpent is divine, not just a regular animal, but it comes from the root word that is a divine type of serpent. More cunning than any beast of the field. Exodus 7 and 9, Aaron and Moses' rod will be a serpent to show Pharaoh was different than the word that was used in Genesis 3 and 1. That translates to dragon, serpent, sea master, right? And that's different than the scenario where Moses is going to cast a rod down to show that he is a prophet of the Most High. Exodus 7 and 9.
Strong's H, 8577. Tanim.
Now we already went over Tanin on part 1. Comes from Tan, a master, a sea serpent. So Tanin means dragon, serpent, sea master, marine or land animal. Aaron and Moses' rod will be a serpent to show Pharaoh, a dragon, a serpent, a sea master. So maybe that's why Moses' snake, which is translated to snake in today's society, what we're thinking, overrided the 2 from Pharaoh. 11, Pharaoh got his musicians to do the same with enchantments. Verse 12, Aaron's rod swallowed theirs. So it swallowed theirs like nothing. Isaiah 51, verse 9, awake as in the ancient days, in the generations of old, thou, not it that had cut Rahab, Egypt, wounded the dragon. Ezekiel 29, verse 3 through 6 was a metaphor towards Pharaoh of Egypt, like as in Isaiah 14, 4 and 12 for
Eleo.
Metaphor towards the king of Babylon. Describing Pharaoh as a beast. Even today, when someone is a wicked person, an evil person, people describe that person as a beast, a monster. It gives description of dragons with scales and further says how Egypt will fall.
Ancient Egypt civilization was one of the oldest and longest ruling empires in history, spanning over 3,000 years. During that time, the empire rose and declined as power shifted from one dynasty to the next, along with the occasional invasion from neighboring empires. However, history shows that even the mightiest empires eventually fall. Beginning around 1100 BCE, Egypt fell into decline. There were several reasons for this, including a loss of military power, lack of natural resources, and political conflicts. The reigns of the last great pharaohs, Ramses II and Ramses III, 1189 BCE to 1077 BCE, are characterized by their strength and ability to defend Egypt against invaders. However, it took significant manpower and resources to ward off these continual attacks, and these defenses left the empire's economy struggling. The kingdom of Kush broke away from Egyptian control in the south. After rising in power, the Kushites conquered some of Egypt, and it was left split between two regions. This left Egypt vulnerable to further invasions, which came from the Assyrians in 671 BCE, the Persians in 525 BCE, and finally the Greeks in 332 BCE. At the end of Egypt's empire, the climate became erratic and unstable. The Egyptians relied on the water from the Nile floods to help their crops grow, but the Egyptian climate experienced roughly 100 years of dry spells and water became scarce. There were also periods of unusually cold weather that further stressed the crops and led to a drastic decrease in harvests. Crops were also destroyed by sporadic and unpredictable flooding of the Nile. With little to no food or surplus for long periods of time, hunger and famine spread. Economic and political unrest also led to the weakening of the ancient Egyptian empire. There were huge inequalities in the distribution of wealth among the elites and the rest of the population. Many people began to distrust the government and religious authority. The continuous wars created huge expenses and weakened the economic power of the pharaohs. Christianity began to spread through Egypt and brought the adoption of the alphabet, replacing hieroglyphics and creating major changes in Egyptian culture. Many ancient practices, such as mummification, ended.
So the reason why I like to show proof of things in science, in nature, in history, the way I learn, you can't just tell me something and I'm going to believe it. I have to see it, that it really happened, it really existed. And that's why I'm taking my time to also show the proof of these different animals, the proof of things in nature, in history. People like to say man made the Bible and it's a bunch of myths. How are you going to dispute what really actually happened? Like, this is not a belief. It actually occurred. So as much as they try to hide and destroy and actually succeeded, destroying the ancient Hebrew history, even looking at the history of other nations can prove the accounts in scripture that isn't backed by science or nature, that's backed by history. So this battle actually occurred and it actually did weaken Egypt's power, contributing more to their downfall.
Took place around 605 before Common Era. This significant military confrontation occurred near the ancient city of Carchemish, located along the banks of the Euphrates River in what is now modern-day Syria. At the heart of this battle were two powerful forces. On one side, we had the Babylonians, led by Crown Prince Nebuchadnezzar II. On the opposing side were the allied armies of Egypt and the remnants of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, commanded by Pharaoh Necho II. Carchemish was not just any city, it was a strategic military crossing and a vital trade hub in ancient Anatolia and the Near East. The Battle of Carchemish marked the final significant attempt by Egypt to maintain its influence over territories that were once under Assyrian control, particularly in the regions of the Levant and Syria-Palestine. The Babylonians decisively defeated the Egyptian-Assyrian coalition, leading to the collapse of Assyrian power and the end of Egyptian dominance in the Levant. This victory was monumental for Babylon. It allowed the empire to expand westward, gaining control over important trade routes and territories that had previously belonged to the Assyrians. Nebuchadnezzar's triumph established Babylon as the dominant power in the ancient Near East. This shift set the stage for Babylon's political and military influence over the Fertile Crescent. The implications of the Battle of Carchemish were far-reaching. It reshaped the balance of power in the region and had a lasting impact on smaller states, including Judah. The battle influenced subsequent historical and biblical events, marking a turning point in the dynamics of empires in Anatolia and the Near East. Carchemish serves as a reminder of the strategic importance of cities that acted as crossroads for culture, commerce, and military might. The battle illustrates the decline of the Assyrian Empire, the waning of Egyptian influence, and the rise of Babylonian supremacy during this period.
Psalm 74, 13, 14. The Most High divided the sea by thy strength, broke the head of the dragons in the waters, broke the heads of the Leviathan in pieces, and gave them to meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness.
Remains of Leviathan on the shores of Tasmania. I actually think it's possible he did, and if you'll hang in here with me, I'll explain exactly what this is. So I'm part of a bone collecting group, and this is the message that he sent us. Looks like a dragon. What was this creature? So if you're not aware, the Leviathan was a primordial sea serpent that is mentioned in the biblical text. He is the embodiment of chaos. Now, some scholars will dismiss Leviathan as a purely mythological creature fabricated from the imagination of ancient peoples. But it's also possible that the Israelites had actually observed something that justified their belief in these sea serpents. And there was an interesting discovery that was made that may justify this latter possibility. Check this out. There's an arid desert area in southwest Egypt known as Wadi al-Hatan, and it is here that erosion has slowly uncovered the remains of dozens of gigantic creatures. And among these skeletons was found the Basilosaurus, which means king lizard. Now, if you're actually looking at these fossils, they do appear to look like giant serpents. However, it's important to note that Basilosaurus wasn't a reptile, but was actually an early whale. The Israelites may have seen or known about these whale remains scattered through the desert, and to them, this appeared to be the aftermath of a great battle between Yahweh and the sea monsters. And this could possibly explain Psalm 74:14, which states, "Thou didst crush the heads of Leviathan, thou didst give him as food for the creatures of the wilderness." So when this guy in my bone collecting group found the remains of what appears to be a pilot whale, I was pretty amused when he said that it looked like a dragon to him, because this could be what the Israelites thought as well.
Isaiah 27:1 speaks about the Leviathan again, times 2. So there was more than one. The piercing serpent, the crooked. The Most High was slain in the deliverance of Israel. I don't know if it's true. I'm not supporting this story yet because I did not dive into it, but it's interesting that everybody is believing that there's this Leviathan that is seen on the World Map app, I believe, when you zoom into it, and they believe that this is, getting closer to the end of time, so that the Leviathan is starting to arouse, and who knows?
Google Earth, guys, look, if we go down to the bottom of the Earth, what does that look like to you? Around Antarctica, what do you see there, guys? It has 2 eyes. It looks like it has scales. As we zoom in, you can see like it has nostrils. This is really, really fascinating for me as a student of Bible prophecy, because this is what it says in Job chapter 41. Can you draw out Leviathan with the hook? God also says in Isaiah 27 that there's a day coming. Once the judgment is over, Yehovah will slay the reptile that is in the sea. Job chapter 3, verse 8, check this out. May those curse it who curse the day, those who are ready to arouse Leviathan. This happened on April 8th, guys. You tell me, check this out.
During the solar eclipse, something big happened in Antarctica that caused waves 25 meters high. People are saying that this surfaced and it came from the direction of Antarctica, and now it is larger than the size of Texas.
Can you imagine a snake that big around the entire circle of the Earth, moving its head, breathing, causing massive tsunamis? What in the world, guys?
Again, I need to dive into it more before I make my decision whether or not I believe it's true. But anyways, Job 38-41, the Most High speaking to Job or questioning him, he points out, like, did I not create all of this stuff? Did I not create this great creature, this Leviathan? Verse 1 talks about the tongue. Verse 2 talks about the nose and the jaw. Verse 3 does not speak. Verse 5 has wings, it can fly. Verse 7, the skin, how tough it is. It's a freaking shield. Verse 14, the doors of his face. So I don't know, does it have fins? Is it when you think of a dragon, that the interpretation that the ancient people came up with a dragon, it does have those little whatever of their faces, and maybe that's the doors. The teeth, terrible. The scales, his prize, so the scales must be like hard as a rock. It's shelled. It's closed. It closes still with no air could come between when it's shut up together. Verse 18, by his sneezes a light shines. His eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. So I guess very bright, like the sun, I would guess. A light shine, the eyes are like eyelids of the morning. Verse 19 talk about the mouth. Out of it comes a burning lamps and sparks of fire leaps out. Sounds like a dragon to me. Verse 20, nostrils comes out smoke. 21, The breath is kindle like coal, whatever. Flames out of his mouth. Kindle coal, breath, flames out of his mouth. Strong neck. Sorrow is turned into joy before him. Now, I don't know how it's that, because it says it's going to be our deliverance at the end. So I found that quite interesting too. Like, nowhere in the world the children of Israel has the machinery, the weapons, the support to come against the armies of these nations. And the armies of these leaders of these nations is not going to just let the children of Israel take over this earth. I've always felt, even before I came in this way of life, I always felt that in a time that the Most High will bring his people, he was going to have earth, his creations, animals, be our army, help us as, you know, members in the infight. So this is interesting. Verse 18, wait, no, I passed that up. Verse 23, his flesh flakes is firm and don't move. 24, his heart is like stone. The mighty, with 25, the mighty one is afraid. 26, no sword, no spear, no breastplate of dart can hold. He breathes through his mouth, and the waters of the deep boils. So his breath is so hot, he causes the deep sea to burn. Passably hoary, meaning old. 34, he is king over all the children of pride. You know the Most High don't like pride, so he's going to overpower these high elite people. So the Most High made these creatures with wisdom. The sea, vast and wide, earth. So that's where from earth to the seas, that's where these creatures are. They're small to great. I mentioned like dwarfs. The idea that these ancient people, because y'all know all these Disney Channel, you know, stories didn't come out the clear blue sky. It came from ancient myths. That's why it's pagan. That's why Disney is a bunch of magical spells they putting on us since childhood. But anyways, you know, the beasts, Tinkerbell, the dwarfs, all of these creatures that they get these ideas from come from their mythical stories, which they wanted to be like. These ancient people wanted that power so much, that sense of God so much, that they worship these God's creations and made gods out of it. But these were actually like God's creations. And this part was very interesting to me here in the scripture, because again, I'm like, well, why did God make darkness? Why did God even, you know, because that has always been my question. And then within doing this research, I'm like, well, why did God make these type of creatures that will be in these desolate lands, which will harbor the darker energies? But perhaps they weren't supposed to be dark. They were supposed to be here for a greater purpose. And again, humankind changed the narrative. We do have the Most High. We seen earlier where I mentioned the Most High created us in his likeness and image. We do have power within us. He made us the dominion over creation. Our mind has the power to believe something into existence. That's why all of this even works to begin with. How you can take a freaking piece of paper and create it into a god, and it, you know, some people can move objects with their mind. Like, the Most High gave us different abilities, made in his likeness and image. So these things were probably created for us to still be dominion over them, but then to also, you know, work for earth. And things just got all messed up. But anyways, it mentions that in the Leviathan, to play with. So this big, great, probably the greatest creature the Most High made is the Most High's playmate. And this goes back to, the question of why the Most High the right to invent whatever he wanted. Darkness was already there, wisdom was already there. Whether or not those were aspects of the Most High, I cannot say. But the Most High, if the Most High created all things, good and evil, if the Most High created dark and light, if the Most High created life and death, it is his prerogative. Why is his prerogative? I don't want to say this because I know this will turn off a lot of people, but I guess I'm not for a lot of people. I'm very realistic, and after doing all of this research, it sounds like the Most High created Earth. He was tired of the darkness. He wanted something bright, something fun. Don't you want entertainment? Like, we are his entertainment. And he has a side of him that's dark. He has a side of him that's light. He has a feminine side. He has a masculine side. And it is what it is. And we are supposed to not choose the original darkness, but choose the light that he put here to make the darkness out of something. It was completely dark in the beginning. It was void, it was waste, it was desolate, it was nothing. And he brought light to it, and he brought life to it. And it's up to us to choose the dark side or choose the light side. But at the end of it all, the light is going to prevail. The light is going to prevail over the darkness. 'Cause clearly, that's what he did not like. Which goes into these entities, or that the forces of darkness wanting to overpower. So, jealousy, envious, hating spirits. If you were here as a force, and the Most High didn't feel like you were good enough, he wanted to bring on a light force, wouldn't you feel some type of way? And I think, I'm not saying this is sound, but my conclusion theory, to make it all make sense at the end of it all, is that, when you think of these dark spirits, when you just barrel it all the way down, because I could say 1,000,001 different things, but when you barrel it all the way down to it, they're trying to overtake. They're trying to suppress goodness and bring on darkness. They're trying to overtake, tempt you into darkness, tempt you into, to choosing the dark side. I think in the end, darkness wants to win. I think everybody know that shit. Genesis 3:1, age 51 and 75.
Nachash.
Whatever that entity was that visited Eve,
Nachash.
it was different than a normal snake. Genesis 44:14, Leah's son came to Joseph after being set up from him like the stole from him, and fell before him. Verse 15, Joseph, what deed have you done? To H 30:45, wot to know, understand. Age 51:72, ye not that such a man as I can certainly divine. Nakash, and it means to practice divination, to cast lots, observe signs, enchant, certainly. So I guess to know certainly, and that's why the serpent told Eve, you will become like gods, you will know between good and evil. You would know good and evil. Numbers 21 verse 4 through 7. The Israelites journeyed from Mount Hor. They spoke against the Most High and Moses, asking, "You brought us out Egypt to die in the wilderness with no food, no water." So the Most High sent fiery serpents, poisonous fiery serpents. Not 5175 Nakash, but he sent these serpents. So, and we even know today some snakes are poisonous and they will bite you and you will feel like your entire body is on fire before you die. The venom. So he sent those type of snakes to bite the Israelites and kill, and many of them died. So they asked Moses to ask the Most High to have these snakes to stop. The Most High to Moses to ask the yada 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 and so the Most High told Moses to make a fiery serpent, set it on a pole, and when the people who has been bitten look at it, they will live. Verse 9. So Moses made a serpent of brass and put it on a pole, and that helped. So Exodus 4 and 3, and the Most High say, "Cast it on the ground." So the Most High say, "Cast it on the ground," and it became a serpent. 5175 Nakash, to prove to the people that he is the Most High. He did it again with Pharaoh, but with Pharaoh it mentions a different type. What he presented to Pharaoh was 8577, which translates to dragon, serpent, sea monster, from 8565. So, all of that to say, more divine serpents. What I'm getting from this, I do know that there's different entities in this world. There's different spirits that manifest within people, and these are the things that we have to identify when we want to break these curses, break these covenants. You know, the Most High say to the 3rd and 4th generation, where we have generational curses. Most African Americans do not even know their great grandparents. I don't know where you from, but if you from one of the islands, or you from New Orleans, or even from Carolina with the Geechee people, you probably got ancestors who made covenants with voodoo, hoodoo, whatever they call it in other parts of Santeria, other parts of islands. You probably got ancestors who made covenants with that. And then even us with not knowing and knowing, some of us, unfortunately, even myself, like I'm diving into this information so I can break these covenants that I made and these curses that I brought upon myself for tapping into darkness. But even what we don't know, like I say, Disney, like we're living in a world that they have us doing something that we don't even know we're doing. All of these holidays that we following, thinking that it's nothing. Halloween, that we're participating in rituals on a daily and not even knowing how deep this is. So we got to put these prayers into effect. I think it will be more effective, and that's why it's important to me to dive into it. It'll be more effective when I identify, okay, I'm going through this right now, or I got a hater in my life, to identify, Hoshek, I rebuke you. If I'm facing temptation, test, And that might look like, in my life, or many other people's life, you know, sexual temptation. I might have to be identify Hasatan, I rebuke you. Pray to the Most High, ask the Most High, like, please, you know, tell Hasatan he cannot test me no more. Because we know the Hasatan cannot be tested unless the Most High give him permission to. So identifying with what's going on in your life at the moment, what entity that might be, to directly, and of course still do it overall just in case you're not sure, just in case it's multiple things, but to identify these things, to be able to rebuke it, to break the covenants, to break the curses out of your life. Now, I did say I was going to do prayers and solutions. So I just say solutions. Prayers, pretty much the same prayers I say in all of the other videos. A bunch of Psalms, even identifying the different scriptures that I mentioned, because I like to freestyle in my prayers too. So Psalms can be an actual prayer that's already made, but like when you're freestyling in prayer, you deep into it and you know, doing your little thing. To be knowledgeable of what it is, you can throw in there, like, you know, Most High, send it back to the desolate places, send that back to darkness, you know, don't let it be in my way. I should not fear. Fear was a core thing. That's what the Most High say, you fear nothing. I made these things. I made these things for my playmates. That's the Most High toy. If you got the Most High on your side, nothing can touch you. So identifying with the Most High, you want these things to go in their destined place. It cannot attack me. Sin hostile. All of these things is important for that. So some people may feel like, oh, if I don't believe it, then it doesn't exist. No, baby, it exists. This is what these witches using. When somebody hating on you, that's why I don't play with haters. Somebody hating on you, know how many people out here try to dibble and dabble into certain things. Some people may have witch in their bloodline, don't even know it, and they have hater in them though. And so then in their mind or on their tongue, they wishing bad on you. Nah, I want to identify all of this stuff so I could be able to rebuke it, to pray on it, to reverse that right back to them. What's the purpose of knowing about Satyr or Halal, you know, the close link that these ancient people, and I'm saying ancient, but they still live today. These ancient gods just translated, I guess. They just became different. The name and the appearance changed with the change of civilizations. So we're not living in ancient times anymore. You're not going to see, we're not living in Greek, we're not living in Egypt, we're not living in Mesopotamia, we're not living in those past civilizations, but we're living in today. What does that look like today? Music, TV, Disney, the ecosystem. You know, the forces that the systems that they're using to keep us suppressed, to keep us in this box and them in power, they're using these ancient gods. So again, humans have taken the essence of these entities and created them into gods, into demons, into more than what, giving them power that they actually don't have. And of course, when you feed something power, when you feed an energy power, an entity, whatever power, it's going to gain power because you're giving them your energy. Keep in mind, Halal, Lucifer is not Satan. Lucifer was a metaphor for the kings, the wicked kings. Now the spirit of Lucifer may exist because who knows when the kings died, their spirit possibly still roamed the earth. Nonetheless, also the spirit of quote unquote Lucifer still exists because at the end of the day, the leaders who's still leading these nations, from the US to freaking England and wherever else, they're still wicked. But nothing to fear there. They are a person. And the most you could do there is break away from their pagan system and do not take part in the pagan activities, the holidays, casual sex. The gods of the whole is Baal. That's why in pagan religions, lust is like very important. Lust is the way that they worship their gods. It's a ritual that they do to worship their gods, and they just made sex so casual today that that's another thing that we are unknowingly participating in. The devil don't even exist. The term can interchangeably be used for a demon. Demons exist, which is Seir, Shade, Shedim, Lilyth, Satan, the app. Also, nothing to fear there. That's literally, Satan can't make no moves without the Most High. Nonetheless, just like any other app, in the physical gets in the way of what you have going on, you have to get rid of them. Fight the battle, reflect on Job, channel Job's strength, and understand that the Most High desires diligent, loyal servants, people who serve him in delight. And not just when they're up, but when they're down. So those trials and tribulations, they're going to come. But how you feel about the Most High when you're down, and the only way to know that you're worthy is through the tests, trials, and tribulations. As far as darkness in your life, destruction, whether that's via a person or Satan, you have to fight that battle spiritually. A person, you have to diligently observe, use what you learn from experience, read the room, and remove yourself from these type of people. People who harbor this type of dark energy, people who want to cause destruction, whether that's destruction to your self-esteem, your confidence, your finances, your image, your reputation, your property, even something as small as, I'm going to give you some examples from my life when I reflect back on the haters and people who were unhealed and not seeking righteousness. I had a loved one a long time ago. This happened. Her daughter spilled nail polish. I think it was like on my bed or something. And she literally sat there and watched her daughter do it. Did not stop her daughter. And didn't even after her daughter did it, didn't even react to it. What? Another incident, somebody at my place, you unclean at the moment. You're going to sit on my couch. Before you go to the restroom to change yourself, the girl was waiting for me to get out the bathroom. So you were full and it was time for you to change. And blood gets on my couch. Not only did you not attempt to clean it, I had to tell you to clean it. And as I'm telling you to clean it, you're acting stupid. Like you don't know how to clean your stuff. First of all, why would you sit on someone's couch and when you know you bleed heavy? People really be into some witchy shit, because that was foul. It wasn't even somebody who don't know about uncleanliness. They know about uncleanness. One more example, but I can go on and on and on. But another incident. As I was doing all of this, awakening to this, something dawned on me and came to my light and my attention with Baal Peor, the god of the holes. Some witches do rituals in people's toilets. So a visitor came to my house, used my toilet, and stopped up my toilet, was in the bathroom for a long time. And even when that happened, I was like, how my toilet get stopped up? I never had issues with my toilet. Where I stay at is a good drainage system. Never had issues before or after. And usually people who stop up toilets is children putting in too much tissue in the toilet. Like what adult woman stopping up toilets? So that was fishy to me. And so when I did this amongst, coming across all of this information and I'm like, you know what? I'm really just so over people, because some of these people are people that I expected to be righteous people. Like the only example I gave, I think that was my loved one. But these other people were supposed to be righteous people, and y'all conducted yourselves like this. Like, I can't trust nobody. Like, it's really hard out here for a righteous person. But anyways, just be mindful. We all know about a mate who tried to destroy a person's life. Co-workers who try to destroy people in congregations who try to destroy images in reputations. Stay away from these type of people. Like, it may not even be personal. If once you leave them alone, they're gonna find another target to try to drain, because something internally wrong with them. They have darkness inside, and you don't want to be amongst that. You feel somebody trying to do witchcraft against you, quote the Psalms, take a screenshot, cleanse yourself. They have spells, you have Psalms. They mix formulas. You belong to the covenant of salt. Hyssop purges you, oils anoints you. The power of the tongue is your sword. We've seen that Moses and Joseph both used Nafash. Everything that pagans use, the Most High gave us. It's the intent behind us. Well, not everything, but hopefully you get my point. The difference is the Most High is the true and living Elohim, and the rest is an illusion, the fake, the artificial, synthetic. You feel like you're in a dark place. Feel yourself. You're feeling empty inside, void, sorrow, misery, feeling like nothing. Fill yourself up, fill your cup up. Ask the Most High to spiritually fill your cup up. But you got to do your work too. Get rid of the waste. Get rid of the nothing food. Feed your body God's food. The nothing fabrics. Replace those synthetic fabrics with frequencies from the Most High, the cotton, the wool, the linen. Grounding, grass, sand, the sun, nature. From things that you hear and think, the senses. You could think things into existence. Put light in your sight. Go outdoors, get plants for your homes, flowers. Google the studies on flowers and plants in your house. Surround yourself with the Most High's creations. You can't do nothing and expect order. Expect light. To amplify your light, your illumination, you have to feed your mind, your body, your soul with illumination, with happiness. Break away from the succubus, incubus spirit. Ask the Most High to break all the covenants you made, your ancestors made. Stay away from the demons, the dark people. They're not trying to heal. They're not trying to have a light. So all they want to do is complain. All they want to do is be miserable and be depressed. we go through misery and depression, but it's a difference between people who not trying to do nothing about it. They just want to continue this cycle. Like, that is irritating. What are you going to do? Are you going to remove yourself from that situation? Are you just going to, like, stay there? Let them be in darkness without you. With other people, with other dark people. In the end, there will be a remnant. Kind of be a part of that remnant.